Hello everyone, welcome to the day 13 of DevOps series. Today's session is about what is Logstash. So let's check the agenda for the session. Firstly, we'll be discussing about what actually Logstash is, and then we'll be understanding about Logstash architecture. So that's all with the agenda. Let's start the session. But before we begin the session, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you'll never miss any update from us.
The Logstash is a key component of the Elastic Stack and it's mainly used as ETL, means to extract, transform and load the engine. So the primary way of collecting the information from all of your different devices in the ELK stack is through Logstash. The Logstash is a primary way we are going to collect the information, process it and then store it into your Elasticsearch, which is our core database. So the Logstash is an open source data collection engine with real-time pipeline capabilities. Means in real time we can keep sending the data, and the Logstash will allow us to easily build a pipeline that can help in collecting data from wide variety of input sources, and it's going to help us parse, enrich, unify, and store it in a wide variety of destinations. So Logstash is not famous only for ELK stack. Logstash also can send to a lot of other destinations. So Logstash is not just popular within ELK. Some people use Logstash directly, independently, this single product only. Logstash is popular in the ELK stack, but Logstash is also popular by independently by its own because it can take information from anywhere. It can also output the information to a lot of destinations, including Elasticsearch. Means Logstash can send data to other people also, but that's not our business. Our business is how is Logstash going to collect it, and the most important is how is it going to do the transformation. What kind of tools are there in your Logstash which can post simply collecting, can enrich your data. So this right, Logstash is going to provide a set of plugins known as input filters and output plugins, which are easy to use and are pluggable in nature. So thus it is going to be the easy process of unifying and normalizing huge volume. So the Logstash mainly has two main components: the way you input and the way you output. So both have plugins. Plugin means, again, you have an extensible nature here. Means it's not standard there. Okay, so Logstash has opened a plugin architecture where there are multiple plugins in how we input and there are multiple plugins in how we output, and this plugins, right, are a lot of plugins are there, and based on the plugins, interchanging plugins, we are going to control the Logstash behavior. What are some of the important features of your Logstash? The Logstash is pluggable data pipeline architecture. Pluggable means it has contains over 200 different plugins that have been developed by Elastic company, and they're all open source community, and which can be used to mix and match and orchestrate your different input and output filters. So Logstash can get data from different kind of people, and Logstash can then perform different kind of operations, text operations on it, means transformation, and then send it. It has more than 200 plugins and it is extensible. So Logstash is written in JRuby. JRuby means it is a Java based Ruby. It's primarily Ruby only. Because why Ruby, if you ask me? Ruby is a very good programming language for text manipulation. Ruby is the most ideal language for a text transformation. And Elasticsearch is mostly about text transformation. That is why it is written in this Ruby. And it's going to support the pluggable pipeline architecture so that you can build yourself your own custom plugin based on your custom needs if you don't find a plugin. And it has a centralized processing, means data from disparate sources can be easily pulled using the various input plugins it provides, and it's going to enrich and send it through multiple destinations. So it acts as that central person to process your information. Then there's a lot of variety and volume. So Logstash can handle all type of logging, guys, like Apache, Nginx, your system logs, Windows event logs, and collects a lot of metrics from wide range of applications. And it can also collect from TCP UDP protocol also, and it can also gather from HTTP protocol, your HTTP events also, and it can also gather information from your Jira, your GitHub, like these tools, and it can also consume data through your relational databases also through some kind of plugins. All this kind, and it's also highly compatible. Compatible means it is easily compatible with the to mix and match with your Elasticsearch and your Kibana tools. And how can we install Logstash? Installation of Logstash, again, the Logstash is, again, I told you, one of the core components and is the actual ETL person within the ELK stack. And again, the Logstash is needing Java, and Logstash does not have its own directory. So it means that you should explicitly handle it. Means for Elasticsearch, right? If you download, the JDK will be within that, but for Logstash it won't be there. So it means that you need to download the Java and install it and set up Java and Chrome as your environment variable, and you need to check your Java version and run the command Java FM version. So once you run it, you should expect to see the Java version output. So I am using Windows machine so that you guys can recreate it. This is my Windows server. Only little bit of more resources you need. So let me get, I got the password, Control V. So the downloads, right? The first thing you need to do when you're going to specify your prerequisite. And so what I did was I did not explicitly install Java. So what I did is I went to my environment variables, go to your settings here. In your settings, Windows settings, click environment. It will automatically give you environment variables. Click on edit environment variables. So you get your environment variables here. So what I did is I created a system variable called Java underscore home. Instead of installing Java, we already have the Java available for ELK stack, right? So I pointed my Java underscore home to the ELK stack JDK because the Elasticsearch came with its own Java, right? So I pointed that to that directory. As I mentioned in your document, in your Windows document, you need to create in the C directory ELK folder inside that Elasticsearch directory. So where you unjar your Elasticsearch, because Elasticsearch is also downloaded as a zip file where we unzip it. So the unzip contents will be in this. Your Elasticsearch directory inside has a JDK. So point it to that one. So it will automatically have Java. You don't need to specially explicitly install it again. Clear? It will not install any additional components, or it's not going to do. The only thing is it will generate log files in that location, log files and data location. And Elasticsearch has a data location, right? Because Elasticsearch is actually nothing but a database. So you need to properly mention your data location, and that too have mentioned in your install location. So you need to update a couple of things in your .yml file, the configuration file. So Kibana, Logstash, and ELK and your Elasticsearch has configuration files, YAML files. We need to update it. Okay. What I have done here is in this machine, I went to C directory. I created an ELK directory here, a simple ELK by myself. I created this folder by myself, and I have placed the ELK stack search here. Okay, so I downloaded here the ELK search and I unzipped the contents and I put it in my ELK folder. So go to ELK stack here and go to bin directory, and so go to your CMD command prompt into this location which I told you. Type in there, and now elasticsearch.bat. Just hit enter. It takes some time and it will provide you the output, whatever it is. It's going to provide you the output, and it gives you a simple message called it's started. Okay, so if you give enough time, because this is running as your service, if you want you can register this as your system services. Okay, you can register this into your system services, and in the system services you can do that. So you see, this is a basic message you should expect whenever you want to confirm whether your application is running or not. Active license is now basic, security is disabled. Okay, so when you see this message, it means that it's actually running. The actual message you can see. NSSM is open source, but there are other paid ones also. You can use them and then you can register it. But only your Elasticsearch has a service through which you can register your system services. Others even don't have that registration also, not even have that. Okay, so register your service to your services.msc. Okay, so I think Microsoft also gives you one what you call help, so you can use either Microsoft defined one, or I think you are using NSS, so that also is fine. Okay, so SRV start, there is one more application. Okay, third party utility, the same thing. You need to create an NA file and put what should happen when you do startup, what should happen to shutdown. You just put a couple of things and go to your command prompt, sc create, the same thing. Yeah. So sc create, I think, is a basic command which is already there in your operating system, and you can create it. Okay. I think you can follow this simple document, because this site is a very effective site. Most of the time it will 100% work if whatever the tool you're not working. But for your Windows machine or for Elasticsearch, you don't need any of this kind of tweaks, because it already has that service you can register. For these guys, you can follow this process. Okay. And see, remember that the preferred way by the enterprises to run Elasticsearch is your Linux only. No one prefers Windows. Only you as a developer, you want to use it, you may use it, but your enterprise is not going to do that mistake of running it in Windows. So in Windows, right, you have your systemctl command which automatically registers it. So there we don't need to worry much. So here I've fulfilled my requirement by creating a Java underscore home here, okay, in my environment variable, and have started my Elasticsearch. And now to start your Kibana, so I can go back now to the bin directory and I'll do the same thing, cmd, but I don't need them here. Okay, I actually don't need them running today for our Logstash practice. Okay, because Logstash today we are going to run mostly independently by itself. But I'm just starting them to show you that okay, we can start these also. You get this message. The Kibana is running on the local port 5601. Okay, so this is how you can do Kibana, and you can copy this actually and test it on your browser and see if it is running or not. So let me run this. Okay, Kibana is running. Kibana is loading. If you see this message, it means that Kibana is initializing. Okay, and when you get Kibana, then you can go to your stack monitoring and also start seeing about your Elasticsearch, because it starts monitoring Elasticsearch. Click set up monitoring with metric big, or you can set up your self monitoring. And once you enable this, it will start gathering the information about your Elasticsearch. It doesn't need any external help. So they don't need any help. It doesn't need any dependency. So, and these applicants does not even need administrative privilege also. So the only thing will be that you were not properly starting it, or it is not being run in a effective way. Something is blocking it as it's not running the application. Okay, you don't need to reinstall the bat. Why you're going to bat reinstallation? Because you can run that Kibana by yourself, right, in the command prompt. Because I don't think that is going to be something you want to. If you want to use the same instance, then because see, for the Windows, right, you don't have the installation option yet. Means there is no .exe file to install properly. Means it is still in the beta version. So for Linux, right, you have that option of installing it as system services. But in Linux, it is not there. It means that you should use some kind of your NSSM or anything only to properly register and run it. There is no other option, because these guys are now, as of now, they are working on providing a .exe file, so that next time you directly click, it will go and install directly on the program files. That is now not yet an option because it's not yet stable release now. So the only option is you need to do that only. If you're facing error, then you need to run that. So let's go to the Logstash. To download the Logstash, go to your elastic.co. In the elastic.co, click on try free. In the try free section, you come down little below, you see the Logstash here. Click on the download button and it will take you to the downloads page. And right now you see there is a zip file and a tar.gz, dev file and RPM file. RPM file means a file to install Logstash on a Red Hat. Deb means a file to install on a Ubuntu, and zip file and tar.gz are directly packaged files where we can download and unzip it. So I have downloaded the zip file, okay, and I already have the zip file downloaded to my downloads directory. And one important thing, remember guys, whenever you're installing ELK stack, ensure that all the three products are the same version. Don't install other versions, okay? If it is 7.5.2, ensure that the other two components are also 7.5.2 only. The three components, the Kibana, Logstash, and your ELK stack. So here you see I have downloaded Logstash 7.5.2, which is around 169 MB, and which is 7.5.2, and I have unzipped the contents, and here I got the directory and have properly again taken it and placed in my C directory ELK, okay, Logstash. And the Logstash, you see there is no JDK directory. It means that it needs Java development to be explicitly handled by you. Means the Java development kit installation should be handled by us. So go to the directory, and the Logstash does not need any running status, okay. You can have it running whenever you want, whenever the data you want to be injecting. So let me go to the command prompt for this guy, cmd. So now you have the Logstash, and what you have downloaded is the complete open source version, okay. And within your Logstash there is a what you call, on the Kibana side there's a paid version, and that paid version we are going to use it later. So if you go to your management, in the management you go to your license management, you see you have a basic license is active, and you can start a 30-day trial version, which is going to be a platinum features, okay. This is where you can get additional features. So this basic license is unlimited, it will never expire. So it's always that we are using the basic license type of all the three products, whether it is Kibana, whether it is Logstash or Elasticsearch, okay. And we will enable later this start trial, and we will use some of the features later. Okay. And now let's go back to our command prompt. So to run the Logstash, right, you can run.
Just a quick info, guys. If you want to make a career in cloud and DevOps, then Intellipaat provides an advanced certification in cloud computing and DevOps by ENICT Academy IIT Roorkee, and it is taught by IIT Roorkee professors and industry experts. This course is designed to upskill and land your dream job.
Logstash -h or -help to get the Logstash command output. And the first thing is, let us see the directory structure of Logstash. Okay. So Logstash has a config directory, and within the configuration directory, you have your JVM. So open the JVM file. Okay, you see here the two important things. You have 1 GB of RAM. Okay, so if you want, you can increase it based on your requirement. So I'll increase it to 2 gigs because I have a lot of RAM on this machine. So I can easily sustain 2 GB of RAM. And all settings below are considered expert settings. So don't mess up with the settings. And right now, your Logstash is only compatible with 1.8 Java version, not with the future Java version. So if you're installing something, try to provide 1.8 Java, not beyond 1.8. Beyond 1.8, some features of Java are not compatible properly. But it won't throw you error. But again, as a best practice, you can try to provide 1.8 JDK, and you can provide what's the home location or all of these couple of properties. Okay. And heap dump is nothing but whenever the Logstash is failing, it will create a dump file which we can go and see why was the Logstash crashing, what was happening during the runtime. Okay. So if you find out heap dump out of memory, means the Logstash was having some performance issues during execution, and it is going to create with a file called as a heapdump.hpof. So it's going to create the file in the home directory location. So you seeing this file in your home directory means there's a huge performance issue on your Logstash. So that's not something as what you call a good sign your application is having. And there are some tools who is going to help you load that file and provide you analysis result. So that's your Java file. Okay, so only Java. So I'm saving it and exit. And again, there's one more YAML file called as a logstash.yml, which is a main file. And log4j2.properties also, we have a file where we can set the properties of our logging. Okay, where the log file is going to write all those things. If you make it bigger, there are a couple of locations where it will do. And you see, it is going to create a file here, which is log file. Log is nothing but what actually Logstash is doing. That, okay, we have talked too much about logs. So here again, the same thing. So the log4j is a standard way of defining the log structure. Okay. When you go to programming, right, the log4j is a library or a package through which you can control the logging format. These are all the log options. How much you want to do the rolling file, after how much MB, what is the policy of the rolling, after 100 MB of the file, I want the file to be doing a rollover strategy. I want maximum 30 files only. So this is your what you call log rotation policy. What is the timestamp you need? What is the file format you need? What is the file name you need? All these kind of things will be there. Okay. And you want to change it, you can change it. How many files you want, how many old files you want, what is the file name you want, what is the file content type you want, all those things you can configure here for your Logstash application log. So Logstash is also a software that guy also has a logging. His logging can be controlled here. And the logstash.yml is the main configuration file of your Logstash. Okay, so it's .yml, it's a YAML file, and mostly it will be part of your data part. Means how many pipeline is nothing but your batch size, how much you are going to process each time in each iteration, and the data part, where is your data going to be available, and also your pipeline settings, how many pipeline IDs you need to have the main ID pipeline, how many workers you need by default. So there are two, means based on the host CPU cores. So I am giving two, but totally have four. If you have more than 4 6 cores, give increase the number of workers. Okay, means parallel threads who can run. So if you have 8 core, you can give 4 core to him only. Okay, because Logstash will never run on your Kibana or your Elasticsearch. Logstash also has its own service where it will run. It is independently running somewhere. So it will never run. See, here we are running all of them on the same server. We will never do that mistake in enterprise. As I told you, each server you'll install separately. So based on this, you can perform your changes, and everything will be related to your data pipeline. Pipeline is nothing but we'll create a pipeline here. in some time. So that's what it is going to call as pipeline, where you're going to provide the input, transformation, and output. So one activity is complete called one pipeline. So the number of pipeline batch size is 125, the delay of the pipelines, all of that. So once we go to pipeline, then we'll revisit this file sometime. Again, we'll see what are those. But the most common things you need to know at the upfront is your data location, the path location, and your couple of other settings. We'll come down. Everything is related to your day. This only. So let's come back here later. Whatever we are going to do with Logstash, everything we'll do in the command line. So the first thing is, I told you Logstash is all about getting information from somewhere and providing it. How can I create a very simple Logstash pipeline? And I want to create a Logstash pipeline on the command line itself. I'll not even write configuration files. So the Logstash has configuration files where we can define your pipeline. But here I want to write a very simple Logstash pipeline. Okay, so that we can define through -e on the command line. So I will generate std in, standard in, then output std out. Std out means what? What is standard in, standard out, guys? Standard in, standard out are nothing but what you print on your command line. Standard in means what you type on your command line is standard in. What you get output on your command line is called a standard output. Those are std in and std out. Those are related to your shell. Whether it is Linux shell or Windows shell, it's the same. So once I hit enter, the Logstash is going to create a runtime pipeline for me, and whatever I type, it is going to take that information. Okay, so let's hit enter and let's see if this guy is going to get started. So there are a couple of warnings here because I have a wrong Java given to him. He was asking me 1.8, but I'm giving 1.13 to it. So my Java underscore home right now, which is configured, is 1.13 Java. So the first thing you should understand is you should see this message starting Logstash with the version number it's going to print. Then it's going to take you something called reflections took. So how much time it took to perform the reflection, and then it will properly tell you your pipeline. So it will tell you exactly starting pipeline, and the pipeline ID is always main, because if you want to change the pipeline ID, it is inside your logstash.yml. So inside logstash.yml, you have the pipeline ID, and the pipeline batch size we have declared there greater than 125, which is also the main configuration, and pipeline batch delay is again greater than 50 milliseconds. And this is, it is creating one pipeline. A pipeline is nothing but if you provide input, output, everything, it's called as a pipeline. So it will tell you pipeline started and pipeline is running right now and successfully started Logstash API endpoint, and Logstash will always listen on 9600 port. So now let us type something. So it is waiting for our prompt. So this is simple and basic interactive way of giving some information, and that guy converting that information to a proper Logstash way. Okay, so I'll just tell welcome. So the Logstash has provided the information like this, the timestamp of it. So automatically it will see whenever you provide any information to the Logstash, right? It will append some information to it, the timestamp of it, and on which server it is getting generated, and what is the message and what is the version of it. These things are additionally added to your data. Okay, so this is interactive. So this has become interactive. So this is a simple pipeline and an interactive piping, but we don't do this kind of basic. What we do is there is a process of writing a file inside which we are going to define everything upfront, and we are going to execute that file or give that file as an input to Logstash. So here click Control C. If you do Control C, it will tell, do you want to terminate a batch job? Click yes. So it is going to be Control C. Control C, you get this message. Do you want to terminate like this? And you can click on yes and hit enter. I'll come back to my terminal mode. So it has worked. It will properly come back to the command line. So now what we'll do is we'll talk about this pipeline. Okay. So installation of Logstash, just like other components of Elasticsearch, as I told you, downloading, installing Logstash is pretty simple and straightforward. Navigate to this location, download the zip or tar file, and find the screenshot to do that. Okay, so this is the Logstash architecture. So the Logstash event processing pipeline has always three stages. So what are the pipeline we are discussing, right? That is going to be the core architecture of our Logstash, which is called as your event processing pipeline, and it has always three stages: the input, the filters, and output. So a Logstash pipeline has two required elements always, which are mandatory. The first one is the input one, and the other is the output one. And this filter one you see in the middle right is mandatory. So the data source means anything, a log file or anything is going to be data source, and data destination is always going to be here Elasticsearch for us. In the ELK situation, for us Elasticsearch is the only destination. I don't have any other destination, but Logstash can create files on the go. Means once Logstash processes, right, you can ask it to Logstash simply store it the data in the text file also. But I'm not interested in that. I'm only interested in my Logstash gathering information and then directly sending it to Elasticsearch. So your filtering is optional, but input and output are mandatory in your Logstash pipeline. So let's talk about these inputs. The inputs are nothing but which create the events. Okay. So the filters, which are nothing but which modify the input events, and outputs are nothing but they ship them to the destination. So inputs and outputs support codec. Codecs means transformation. Okay, transforming from one format to other format. They handle explicitly, means you don't need to again break your head and convert them. So they support the codec. Codec means which allow you to encode and decode the data as it enters and exits the pipeline without separate filter. Encoding decoding means converting JSON to text, text to JSON, JSON to CSV, these kind of things. Okay, it will seamlessly handle it. You just need to tell which kind of decoding you want. So the decoding is nothing but by using the plugins. And how is Logstash going to process information is it is going to process the information through in-memory bounded queue. So how is Logstash processing the data? See, there is a log file, okay, something called as apache.log. So there is apache.log file on your Linux server, and it is constantly generating data, and you have created a pipeline to for the Logstash to constantly monitor this file, get the information, do some transformation, and send it to Elasticsearch. So Logstash is going to the data will be stored into your log file. Okay. So here file path simple output file path, it will store that output to the file. Okay. Not much what you call options. You have a couple of other options here. When the file you can store it as a zip file, or the path location, how the flush interval, file mode, what should be the file mode, means you can set up the file mode, permissions of the file, all this kind of basic options you have. So we will see the output also when we are writing the Logstash. Any other important ones we see? Not much. No, there are a lot of them because you have option, but again, our intention is to get that information loaded to Elasticsearch so that again we can perform analysis on it. Or again, once you store to Logstash, Kibana will right away have access to the data and then start displaying it. So anyhow, we'll talk more about Kibana, but our destination is mainly about sending the data constantly to the Elasticsearch to store that information properly so that later we can perform any kind of operations on it. Okay. See, Logstash has a huge value within standalone way. That is why you see these all options. Though we are only talking about Elasticsearch, why is it creating this many output? Because Logstash was independent first. Logstash, right, was not ELK Stack own product. It was developed by one single person. One normal person who was working in a company, who was a system administrator, created Logstash. Then Logstash became so popular. Then this person, right, went to Elasticsearch and he collaborated with him, and then he made this Logstash a part of ELK. So ELK was not original. Only Elasticsearch database was created by the ELK people. Okay, and Kibana. So Logstash from the starting it was independent software available in the market. But since this was so popular, the Elastic company took this person and made it part of their tool set. So that's why you see this many output section. Because if an ELK company created it, right, their output would have only been two or three things, but it would have not been this much elaborate. So that's why people use Logstash in some other kind of basic situations also. Not part of ELK stack. Also, it has some use cases because it started as an independent open source project. Then it was adopted by the Elastic company, because normally you don't do this, you don't see company doing unnecessary additional things, right? Because they don't want their product to be used by other people. But still, since this is not their product, this was created by one person. Then let's talk about your filter plugins, and this is where the most of your headache will be there. Why headache? Because transformation. Okay, the data whenever you collect won't be proper format, right? So yes, it won't be proper format, and the filter plugin is used to perform transformations on the data you are going to collect. Transformation means the whatever the transform means, converting from one format other format, cutting it, slicing it, whatever you do. Data manipulation. Okay, it allows you to combine one or more plugins, and order of the plugin defines the order in which the data is transformed. You can have multiple plugins also. Means the data can pass through multiple plugins also. One plugin out of other plugins can pass through, and it is going to act as an intermediate section inside your pipeline configuration file. It's an intermediate section. It is an optional section, and these are all the list of available plugins we have. So CSV, a very popular one, which is going to parse the input data through CSV. So if you put the filter plugin as CSV, so Logstash will automatically understand, okay, this is CSV file. Let me process it based on CSV format. So how do you define it? The defining is like this: filter CSV. And not just CSV, you also can convert the data. So when you're gathering the data, you can convert the column 1 to integer type and column 2 to Boolean type. Integer means if it is having like customer name or customer number, it may be integer. And Boolean means is customer loyal customer, loyalty customer, no, yes or no, right? Then it will be Boolean. So while we are getting the data, we also can set the type of data to the data type. So we can set it like that. So we can, that's why filtering is not just about basic thing, it can convert the data. So it is converting normal data to specific data type. Means it's integer only, it is Boolean only. So CSV filter takes an event field containing CSV data and parses it and stores it as individual fields. So it will take it as a single field and it will pass it as a individual fields. So comma separate means A comma B comma C is a CSV file, but it will become A, B, C, something like that post loading this guy. And you also can add fields. That's again a very big thing. You can add fields. For example, your CSV has 3 fields. You can add one more field. For example, let me tell you what does it mean. For example, you have 3 fields: age, name, number. Okay.
Just a quick info, guys. If you want to make a career in cloud and DevOps, then Intellipaat provides an advanced certification in cloud computing and DevOps by ENICT Academy IIT Roorkee, and it is taught by IIT Roorkee professors and industry experts. This course is designed to upskill and land your dream job.
Now something like 20 years, name something Kumar, number is a 1234. So when you parse it through the CSV plugin, right? The CSV plugin can add information. Adding information means I can add 4th field. Okay, the field name will be here. If you see this structure, the field name will be something foo underscore some field name. Then it will be hello world from host, because see there are some fields available to you automatically at you, which is host. Because I told you by default Logstash will know from where it is collecting. You want to add some information because from where you're collecting, so you can add a field through like this. If you write this logic, right? If you write this logic foo some field hello world, no need of hello world, you just put host section itself. What happens is when this data will be printed, right, after this transformation, the data will be comma your IP address, like host name, whatever the host name it is. For example, it is from your prod hyphen db hyphen one dot for example sba.com or something. Okay, so this is my server name. So it will get like this. Means you set as input 3 fields, output 1 field got added. So that is add field. So remember that all of your what you call the magic happens in this filtering only, because while you're collecting it, it is your duty to properly transform it and send it. Don't try to send the information, unstructured information to see it into your Elasticsearch. See, the more structured information you send into Elasticsearch, the more benefit you are going to get it. See, otherwise, if you see, it is fine to send unstructured data, but if you send it, you can't utilize Elasticsearch to use all the transformations or the what you call operations on it, the search operations, everything, right? Won't work properly because there won't be consistency in the data. So most of the heavy lifting should be done here itself. And this each of this filter plugin have enough knowledge to do all kind of these things. Understood? So remember that there's a lot of emphasis on the filter plugins, and you should properly know how to do. So new field, so adding fields, we can add 1 field or 2 fields, it's up to you. You can add 2 more fields which will get added. Okay, and you also can give id, a unique id to the CSV. Okay, you also can remove a field. For example, you are getting 4 fields, in that you don't need second field is unnecessary, so you can remove the field. Okay, and you also can remove multiple fields also. So you are getting a lot of data, some data you want to remove, because removing the data itself is a very important thing. So you can remove the field and you can remove tags. And you also can tell skip empty columns. If there is empty column coming in, right, unnecessarily 5th column will be empty, you can skip empty columns, you can skip empty rows. Skipping empty rows and columns is also very important thing. Otherwise blank data will load into Elasticsearch. And see, by default, the CSV is the separator in CSV is comma, right? Because CSV means comma separate value. But sometimes the data you get in a CSV files may be like this semicolon separator, okay, or colon separator, okay. So that time you can define separator, which what is a separator, so that it will properly understand. Because CSV means blindly it will try to see comma between the data. If comma is not there, it will I can't process. So you can also choose a selector. What is a selector? By default, it is comma, but you also can select different kind of things. So all of these things are there. So that's why you are supposed to know the extent of this proper syntax, and the best way for you to discover this is through the official documentation. Don't go anywhere internet, because these tools are rapidly evolving. So some option which worked in 2017 may not work. So don't see old articles beyond 2018. Okay, Elasticsearch in the last 2 years has developed a lot. 2 years back, Elasticsearch version was 2. Now it is 7. There is a huge difference. Okay, so any blog you read even 2008 is mostly irrelevant, because that functionality would have been enhanced, or that functionality would have been replaced with additional functionality, or there are a lot of changes. So I would always suggest you to go to the official documentation. Otherwise, it's going to be hard. Okay, yes, I'm fine. You going 2018, but don't go beyond 2018 old documents. How can you Google search only specific documents? There's a very simple trick for you. Remember this, it's always going to work like a charm, always. For example, I want to learn Logstash filter plugins. Okay, I'm interested to learn more, like something like Logstash filter examples. So what you can do is click on tools. In the tools, right, you have anytime. Click anytime, click custom range, go back 2 years. Okay. Or what I do most of the time is click anytime and click past year. So all the latest articles I'll get. All the people who are using the latest articles I'll get. Okay. So mutate filter is also one filter we are going to now see. Mutate is also very powerful filter. The CSV is not at all an important filter, but you can understand how powerful CSV filter is. But the most powerful filter is Grok filter. But first, let's go to Mutate. If you go to filter plugins, you'll see the Mutate here in a minute. Okay, Mutate performs mutations on the fields, again, which is a very powerful filter which can be applied on your data. Whatever the data you're collecting, you can mutate it. So let's see what can we do with the mutate. So the mutate is going to mutate the fields. Okay, we can add, specify the fields. Okay, that CSV was only CSV, but mutate can handle on any kind of things. Okay, so the mutate is a plugin which can work on the normal data. The CSV, what we talk, right, only will work on CSV data, but this mutate will work on general data we collect, any log information you're going to collect. So the mutate filter allows you to perform general mutations. You can rename, remove, replace, or modify fields in your events. So what all can you do? You can capitalize it, lowercase, you can strip, you can remove, you can split, you can join, merge, copy. So there is column 1, column 2. You want column 1, column 2 to merge and go as a single data inside. That is possible. You want to copy data, you want to join, strip means, for example, the data you collected is having 123.12, so there are a 0.12 ending. You can strip the data after the dot. So stripping means cutting the data, uppercase, lowercase, converting it, adding, renaming. All of this are possible through filter mutate. Okay, so add field, short host name, you're adding the field name. Okay, split is through your host name and dot is your split. And renaming, short host name can be renamed to host name. So okay, so there is a field in the data you're collecting called short host name. I can change it to host name, mutating, rename. So you see, within the filter I can call my mutate twice. First I can perform this filtering, then I can perform this filtering. So multiple filters can be performed. And let's see a couple of them. So I am converting the field name to integer. So I'm setting up a strict data type here. Okay, so what are the data I am getting collected, I am doing it. Copying source field, destination field. So source field will be copied and pasted as destination field, means the same data will be having in two fields now. Data field means like in a single line, right? That's a field. Now join, you can join the data field name with comma. You can convert the data, this field name data, to lowercase, uppercase. Merging destination field to added field, this data will go and get merged into added field. That's a field name. How do you find field names? Field names are nothing but the data you're going to collect, it will automatically be mapped into the field names. So mutate is a very popular one. And if you see the name, if you see some, you can add tags. Tagging means it's going to just tag it. which is going to be useful when you are going to search it to your indexing. The same thing. So he's showing you an example. Okay, so here this is the data you're collecting. Okay, in this data password is there. Okay, and you want to remove it because you don't want passwords being input. So that time you will tell remove underscore field password, the data password will be lost. If you write like this, remove underscore field password, so the password field, right, it will be lost. So that's a field. Okay, then the password field will be removed now. Okay, and you want to have a conditional removal, that is also possible. Means if salary is equal to this number, then I want to remove the field city. So yes, you have a functions also, means your what you call little bit of functionality. Your if statements also is possible, where you can write conditional based mutate. So write a condition, inside the condition you can mutate it. If this condition is passing, I want to mutate. Okay, you want to merge data, you can merge data. Okay, so merging state and city, so the state and city will merge into single one. Okay, so here where is my state and city? City is this, where is state and city are getting merged into what? Into city. So state is getting merged into city, means the state information also will be stored in the city value only now. So now city value is before OCC, but next time the city information will be TNOCC. TNOCC means that is Tennessee, I think, in America. So Tennessee OEC. Okay, so like that. So you see state hyphen city MD bonded. So it will be comma separated. Okay, so state hyphen city. So that is going to be merged. Your city will be there, but state won't be there. So person merging into won't be there. Person getting merged will be there. Adding white spaces, it is, yes, you can add white spaces into your messages. Okay, there is a message in that you want to add white space additional comma separated. You can add the data comma separated. Okay. So all of this you can do. Okay, and when you're performing, you can perform your filtering option, you can test it, and that's your mutate. So everything is a basic test transformation, you don't need to worry. Okay, this is not some coding or some complicated thing, you will easily figure it out. Okay, but all of this figuring out only happens through trial and error. But the most important thing is following your official documentation or some kind of these blocks. Okay, so you can go and see how to use. Anyhow, again we are going to open a couple of documents. Okay, that's mutate. And let's, we have not even touched the most important filter plugin, the Grok. The Grok is the most important plugin, and that's where this whatever we saw mutate, right, that is not even complexity. Let's go to the most complex one, is a Grok. The Grok is the most powerful filter and the most common filter you're going to extensively use. So most of the time the Grok filter will fulfill most of your use cases. Mutate is good, but Grok is very, very good. So the Grok is a great way to parse unstructured log data into something structured and queryable. Queryable means some data you have is highly unstructured, means it is completely jumbled data, but still I want that data to be converted to some kind of meaningful data and then load into Logstash so that I have a proper structured data. Tomorrow my queries will work. So, and the Grok is the perfect tool. Okay, it is a perfect tool for your sys logs, Apache logs, web server logs, MySQL logs. In general, any log format, this is generally written for humans and not for computer consumption. So all of this, right, logs, any log information is for human consumption, for us to easily understand, but machines won't understand, because machines need to understand either it is in a JSON document or comma separated data. It should be properly having some fields, right? So the Logstash will ship by default 120 patterns. Okay, so there are 120 patterns by default, it will ship, and we can use these patterns to match your logs. Okay, so and also if you want some help, right, there is a Grok debug at Heroku, this website. Okay, if you go to this website, right, if you can provide an input data and a pattern, right, it will show you what kind of things it will do. So first let us see this, and later remember this website will be useful for you. Grokdebug.heroku app, which is going to, you provide some input data, okay, and pattern, what should be the Grok filter, it will tell you. Means you give input and you tell what is your output, and tell, it will automatically generate your Grok filter for you. So you don't need to go through that hassle of creating Grok filter for yourself. It will create for you. So the Grok is a simple thing which works by combining text patterns into something that matches your logs. So it is going to combine your log file. A log file means, let me open you a very simple. Have you seen any Apache log file, guys? Okay, so Apache is a very, very common log every company will have. Why? Because every company will have website, and every website should have a web server. which I told you, right? There is no escape from it. So obviously you'll have a log file. And your Apache web server logs are a huge data mine, okay? There are a lot of information you can gather from your log files, okay? So, okay, this is a standard Apache log. This is a line, okay, which will be printed in Apache. So IP address, name, what is the user requesting, and what protocol it is, and what is the HTTP response output, all. Okay, so this is a request made by a user, and then if the output is sent, then output will be sent. So this is how the data will be printed in your log file, which is your Apache web server log. So this, right, will be understood by human, but machine doesn't understand. Machine can't simply know where should I do spacing, right? It can't understand. So that time you can use your Grok to process it. So process the information and send it. So for example, this is the file, okay? This is Apache log file, okay? This is the IP address from where the customer is coming, okay? And this is the request HTTP method. Easy add asking something or posting something. Get means is asking index.html, okay? And this is the timestamp and this is this, okay? So now the pattern for this can be percentage IP colon client. This is going to be IP of the client. So the first data is automatically mapped into IP address of the client. I am mapping this information. So here there is no mapping because log is unstructured data. I need to properly create a field to it and assign the data to a field. So I am creating a field called IP colon client field, and all this data will be in this IP colon client field. So tomorrow I can write some queries and write on the IP and so client. Only the first column of the information will be given to me. So some data is there in a text file, and the text file has equal amount of columns, because when Apache is printing, right, it will print all that in the same number of columns. It will not increase and decrease columns. That's not possible. So I will have this data, same data, thousands of lines, but I want some meaningful insights or analytics on it. Means I should map this data to a variables first. That will be possible through Grok. Okay, Grok can do that. So that is why Grok is very important. So what you do here, the message you are getting. So this is a very simple one you see. Okay, here I am using the file as my input. I told you, right, file is one of the most common input plugin you told. So you tell file here and the path, where is this path in your system, then filter Grok. The Grok will take it, and that message you take it, right, it is going to become like this message. This one will become client IP, get will become the method, and URI pattern, then the number of bytes transferred to the user, and what was the total time taken to process that. Now, after the Grok field has happened, this is the data you get. Client equal to this, method equal to get, request equal to this, bytes equal to this. So you see how properly it has become. And now this data can be loaded to a JSON and stored. Then tomorrow we can properly write a basic SQL queries. When client equal to something, when method equal to get, right? Now you can simply start writing SQL queries, not SQL queries, but your queries of on top of your Elasticsearch. Yes, so that's why, as I told, a lot of your effort initially or during your initial Elasticsearch setup, you will be supposed to do all this transformation so that people can really get the benefit of Elasticsearch implementation. If you don't write properly, then if there is unstructured data, it is our headache to break, and it's not means ultimately your ELK stack product, all the money spent on buying everything setup will be wasted if you're not properly loading the structured data. So you guys or any team who is going to be the person who is going to load should consider it. You need to put your thinking around it, or you need to ask the people what is the data coming in, what kind of data you need to. Sometimes you may not be getting any help, so you need to figure it out by yourself. Sometimes the team can help you. Okay, yes, this is this kind of data, we want this kind, because not everyone will know about Elasticsearch, right? They'll simply want Elasticsearch to do analysis, but blindly they don't know anything.
Just a quick info, guys. If you want to make a career in cloud and DevOps, then Intellipaat provides an advanced certification in cloud computing and DevOps by ENICT Academy IIT Roorkee, and it is taught by IIT Roorkee professors and industry experts. This course is designed to upskill and land your dream job.